No. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Does that mean you're going to click through for us?
Yeah, I'll click through for you guys.
Perfect. Are we going to present it or are you just going to go like this? Either works.
What was that?
Are we going to present it or are we just going to go through the slides like this?
Yeah, we'll present. I'm actually looking for the present button. Kind of.
I think it's at the top near the.
Yeah, right below your mouse. By the share on the top right. So up by that yellow share button.
Oh, there it is. I see.
Yeah.
The Zoom box is actually hiding that, so I could. It was actually hiding.
Awesome. Okay.
Sweet.
Perfect. Collaboration in and across teams by us. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go start first. So my name is Taylor Huxley. I'm going to be talking about collaborative projects and kind of how to work on different projects as a team. So of course, there's benefits and negatives to working in collaborative projects. So starting with the benefits, there's definitely a lot more creative and better considered decisions just because the team atmosphere allows those to be more presented, and it will promote a higher morale. It'll give a better understanding of the decision and a greater endorsement. Other negatives include social loafing, which is like low performance and reduced productivity, and it'll have lacking communication. Communication is a big thing that teams always struggle with, and it can slow down decision making between a bunch of groups and create a complex network. So let's try to figure out how to make a good collaborative project go so it leads more towards the benefit side. So if you want to switch to the next slide, we're going to talk about the art of making decisions. So I want to start by talking about this Rowe and Bulgarity's decision style. So they made it to kind of help you determine how one would respond in a decision-making situation. And they broke it down to these 4 different categories, which I have no idea why it's PAEI, but P stands for directive, and directive talks about how, or directive individuals needs to have structure. They really are about structure. They prefer to make decisions based on undisputed facts and impersonal rules. They trust their own senses and focus reports from others rather than any like outside data. And they're really good at leading a group. Next one is analytical. Analytical-minded people can process anything, but they need a lot of time and information in order to process it. They really rely on logic, and they overview the aspects very carefully, and they consider everything like twice. They are very comprehensive, and they will look more towards the data than the more human-focused issues. Conceptual styles they're a lot more creative and exploratory. They're like very comfortable taking risks. They are more like big picture creative thinkers. They think of possibilities and gather information from plenty of different perspectives. So they'll really like strive in a group with like 6 different people from 6 different countries, just so they can get that different perspectives. And then behavioral will focus more on the feelings and the welfare of the group members rather than the data and the logical side of it. They're a lot more emotional, so they'll focus like exclusively on relationships rather than tasks. So then we need to talk about, now that you learn what kind of style you are, you need to figure out what way to make that decision. So they can basically break down those decision making into 4 different categories. So consensus, voting, compromise, and authority rule. Consensus is everybody agrees to adopt the same decision, and while not all members support the decision equally, they will all agree to carry it out, which is an important part of it. Voting is going on about like the majority wins, so even if it's only 51%, it will still go for that decision, even if that leaves the other 49% upset. Compromise talks about how it's fair since each member gives up something as well as gaining something. The main reason to do this is so what is given up isn't like just disregarded, that they both agree and they both follow the rules. And lastly, the authority rule requires no input from the group, just has one person make the decisions, and it might be a little bit more quicker if it's not necessarily a group needed thing. So that's how you make decisions. So then going on to communication, if you want to go to the next slide, it kind of talks about the beauty of technology in the communication.
We're having a little difficulty issues here.
You're good.
Oh, okay.
So in this modern day and age, like communication between groups, like all the time, communication groups is the most important thing. But luckily today we are able to use technology to carry out those conversations. So there's a lot of quick conversations. So if you just need to have a quick conversation, like just a quick question, you can use a bunch of different platforms such as Slack, Google Hangouts, WebEx, and Microsoft Teams. Those softwares allow for like chat in real time, so that these projects can be completed faster and they don't have to wait for so long like emails to be responded to. Also, but that being said, emails are great for longer messages if they have more questions or discussions or feedback that they really need to dive into. They can use something like emails or conferencing or scheduling meetings, whether that be in person or online. And then another thing that is kind of leading into the business world is project management. It was normally used just for construction work, but this kind of new tool helps keep all parties involved in the project on the same page. They help reduce the amount of incoming and outgoing communications, since then they'll be able to see the status of each person's work. So it's kind of really cool that it's kind of bringing into the business world. So then the next slide, we're going to talk about writing on a group project and how do you divide that work up. So when it comes to writing in a group, it's totally okay to just have one writer who maybe that's their special skill and to let them do it. So that way it is a more consistent voice and the rest of the team can help in reviewing, editing, and revising. Or you can do writing by committee, which is more of a conversation and the ownership of the output belongs to all, no matter how individual work steps are completed. Or multiple writers, where each team member takes an own section. However, if you do that, you just need a really strong outline so that nobody writes the same thing, nothing gets overlapped. And to make the whole writing process easier, just use the internet. Use these different kind of sources like MS Word, Google Docs, or Dropbox. That way you can see what other people are doing, see the previous changes, have plenty of documents for storage reasons, whatever suits your need. That will help the writing process in a group go by much smoother and faster. And so in the last slide, we're just going to recap everything we talked about. So decision making solves more than just current problems. It'll help the group work together better, just like on a friendly basis. You will make sure you learn how you think so you'll be able to make those decisions better. Communications make productive and healthy teams. Technology is your friend. It's going to help you every step of the way. Don't be afraid to use the skills that you have mastered in the group and use it to your best interest. Make sure strong outlines so you don't overlap each other, and don't forget to balance work and time. And that's collaborative projects.
Great. Good job. I can go next. So I did team communication in the workplace, and my name is Kameron Mortezazadeh. So to start off, I'll just talk about some of the different kinds of teams that there are. And obviously there's many more than this, but these are just a few that we read about and some of the advantages and disadvantages of each. So the first one is cross-functional teams. These ones in essence are group leaders of different functional areas of an organization. They come together to solve a wider or bigger problem within a group or company or organization. And a big advantage of that is there's a wide view of the organization itself. Whereas a disadvantage might be that if they don't have like a strong central leader, it can take longer for those goals to be accomplished. A task force is more of a responsive team. One of their advantages is that because they're responding to a specific problem or event, their goals are very specific and they're very quick to be solved. And a disadvantage of that is that they're short-lived and the team is usually dissolved pretty quickly. The third one is virtual teams, which can overlap with the first two, but it's in essence what it sounds like. kind of like what we're doing. We're meeting together in different locations. An advantage is that, one, it can be really low cost. Two, it's very convenient and flexible for the people who are working. But some of the disadvantages are obviously if you're not in person, there can be miscommunication or a lack of information that's passed through when you're meeting over, a computer or a cell phone. The last one is a self-managed team, which is more of like an organization or company within an organization. They have a lot more responsibility and authority to proceed with whatever project or process they are looking over, which is one of their advantages. They don't have to get as much approval for things. They can kind of work on their own. But one of the big disadvantages is something called groupthink, where people, in essence, just kind of go with the flow. They don't bring their own ideas. So now we can go on to the next slide. And I'll talk about some of the team dynamics. Now, there's basic advantages of a team. When people work together, they can build relationships that can build satisfaction for those people, which in turn brings higher motivation. When people are more motivated, their quality of their products goes up, and it just kind of bumps everything up. Now, it can obviously go the other way. If you don't have good leadership, or if you don't have, people who are working well together, it can have the reverse effect where people are wasting time and they don't want to work together and their goals aren't achieved. And a few things that are necessary in order to keep the dynamics of the team, working well is, one, the relationship between the teams needs to be constructive. People need to work together. They need to be proactive and, help one another, but be willing to take criticism from one another in a good way. And then we talk about 2 points: self-cohesion and collective efficacy. Self-cohesion is more like team members, being willing to work with one another, whereas collective efficacy, if I'm saying that right, is the team's belief that they can accomplish their goals. And the last thing is, it's important for there to be different, roles for team members. And that way everyone can kind of divide and conquer. I like the last one, which is the devil's advocate, which in essence is someone assigned to play that role so that they can bring, kind of a different perspective to the group. And that way people can bring out the best and get the best ideas to the table. So we can go to the next slide. Now, one kind of short but very important topic is how that information is passed in the network between team members in an organization. This picture on the right, you can see it's kind of jumbled up. And when an organization doesn't have a correct flow or a structural flow of information, a lot of information can be lost, and that obviously affects how goals can be accomplished. So it's important to have good structure with your information, whether it's all leading to one person or from one person. It helps goals to be accomplished because it promotes efficiency. So we can go to the next slide now. Now, conflict. This is kind of an interesting one because there are advantages to conflict where you might just think it's disadvantageous. Now, we all kind of know the disadvantages of conflict. If people aren't working together well, or there is kind of unhealthy conflict between two people, there's a lack of motivation and people aren't willing to proceed with the work that they have. Where there is healthy conflict, which in essence kind of goes back to the devil's advocate point, where if people are willing to bring out their best ideas and not really worry about what other people will think or challenge maybe someone else's idea, it can help for the best to come forth. And that healthy conflict can actually help teams to grow, come out with better ideas and better products overall. And a few different points to help maintain this healthy conflict is to establish rules of how people are to communicate and respect one another. Make sure everyone is willing to listen to one another, and have open-mindedness is something very important with this. So we'll go to the next slide after this. Now, finally, really in conclusion to communication between a team in the workplace is it's a win-win situation for teams to be able to work together well, not only for the organization, but also for the individuals involved. But that's heavily reliant on those team members' ability to work well with one another. So that communication is vital in how it flows from team members themselves, but also up through the chain in order to promote goals and help things to get done. And conflict is a necessary part to helping teams to grow and move forward. So in conclusion, I just like that first point where it really is a win-win, for the organization and for its individuals as well. So yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome job, guys. To Kameron and Taylor, great job. So I'm gonna be talking about establishing workplace etiquette, and like etiquettes are just such an important part of your career and the professional life, and it's kind of hard because there are these kind of like unwritten rules that we kind of learn by trial and error, and so having good etiquette is important in professional work environment, just as important as it is your professional skill set. Whether you're meeting with a potential client or having your annual performance review with your manager, etiquettes will determine a great portion of the outcome. No one wants to lose the opportunity of a sale or a promotion due to bad etiquettes. So that kind of goes on like there's different types of etiquettes for your workplace and the work culture and even like the setting, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the workplace. So definitely like your attire. Each company and everything has different dress code policies and what's acceptable, and the kind of rule of thumb is if you're unsure, like definitely dress up. It's definitely better than dressing down. And then if you're unsure, like there's definitely people, core workers or bosses who would be willing to help you understand and even learn. And then body language is another really important part. We cannot say anything, but if our bodies are disengaged and we look like we don't care what someone's saying, it's pretty evident to a speaker or a presenter or a boss. And kind of like on this, like even if you're in something and someone's talking to you in a presentation and you're just like, oh, like this is the most boring thing in the world, like you may think that, but it's really important to try and put forth the best effort you can to look engaged and look positive, even if you don't think so. And then more interactions in the workplace on your speech, right? Like particularly in like if you're in a cubicle setting or anything like that and you're talking to somebody, like it's definitely very important to be mindful of your core workers and the work that they're trying to do, so not being too loud or distracting. But also in speaking to others, we have to be respectful of other people's personal space. Nobody likes someone talking to them and the nose is right in front of yours. But it also mentioned in our reading that you need to make sure you're close enough that they can hear you. So I thought that was kind of funny. So you don't want to be shouting to somebody either. And just as normally as we should always strive to do is just making eye contact with people that we're speaking with, and that just shows them that we're engaged and we're confident in what we're doing and knowing and things like that. And another important etiquette of the workplace is punctuality. I mean, professionalism really does equal punctuality, particularly if you're new in a company or a new associate. You're trying to establish yourself and your credibility, and it's different if you're late than like a partner of a company being late. And then another thing, if you have a meeting with a boss or a manager and they're really late, and you also have things you need to do, maybe you can reschedule a time with them, but definitely just don't leave, or when they come say, hey, like what the heck, you're late and this is your fault. Like, no, like you never want to criticize, but definitely just communication is just so important in that. Okay, and then there's kind of this gray area where there's like social events in the business world. And so while these events are to socialize, it's good to remember to be professional, and you're there to either promote your product or to gain clients or to just build your network in general. So you definitely don't want to go viral on the internet for something you did if you had too many drinks or something like that. And that's kind of something to be mindful of, and something that talks about in the book. Like a lot of these events, like there will be alcoholic beverages or things like that. And it's just important to, like, if you do those things, like enjoy it, but don't go over the board that you step away from that professional mannerism. And just being proactive at these events, like it's kind of hard sometimes to to step out of our comfort zone and mingle with people we don't know. And but that's the whole purpose. And particularly like if you arrive late somewhere and there's already a bunch of group of people kind of already mingling, like don't be afraid just to jump in and introduce yourself and make yourself known and participate in that conversation. So just in conclusion, good etiquette is so important for your growth as a professional in your career. Like you never know when you're going to meet your next partner or manager or coworker or even business partner. And just being proactive and learning how like the cultures and of etiquettes change, right? So like right now with COVID-19, like the Zoom etiquette and just the whole online presence is something that I personally wasn't used to, but now I'm getting more accustomed to. And even just like handshaking, like, you know, a year ago, handshaking was a staple item of respect and in business. But now it's kind of hard. It's kind of like this awkward, I don't know if I shake your hand or give you an elbow bump or whatever. So just, and that's the thing, as time evolves, like there'll be different things like COVID that kind of change what's normal and what's proper. And it's just be good to be proactive in learning those things. So yeah, that is etiquette.
Nice. I like that. Well, good job, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Too bad.